Kato's Eurostar. How can you convert this to DCC? Hi, I'm Jeff and welcome back to Flint Hills Model Railway. In this video I'm going to share with you how I converted the Kato Eurostar to DCC. Kato's N-gauge model of the Class 373 has been available for some time. You can get the 8-car set with the additional 4-car sets to make 12, 16 or even 20 length trains. This release was issued depicting the original Eurostar livery. More recently, Kato have released an updated Eurostar set, and as before in an 8-car set with additional 4-car sets to make 12, 16 or even 20 length trains. This new version carries the updated 2013 E300 livery. Now, I wouldn't call these models DCC friendly. However, these can be converted to DCC with some modifications which I will explain in detail. Both old and new variants are the same, and in this video I will convert the new model which I've just purchased. So let's start with the motor unit, and the hardest job in my opinion here is to get the body shell off the chassis. So the first job to do is actually to remove the nose by just simply pulling it, and as you can see by just gently shuffling it, it does come unclipped. And now for the tricky bit. I take my plastic blades and I just from the front wheel just slide them towards the back. Now as you can see, this is not the easiest of things, so I'll just put one side in and then I'll go back to the front, if I can see where the front is, yep. Slide it under. It's a new model so everything's really tight, but it will go in, and then just gently slide them towards the back. And as you then pull that one up towards the back as well, it will release from the back. So if it does come out, just make sure you go back to that front wheel and you can get underneath and then just slide along again. There we go. What's funny is literally as you just slide them along, it will just magically just pop off. And that I think is actually the hardest part of this job. So with the body shell off, we can now see the printed circuit board, the PCB, with the red and white directional LEDs. The good news is that Digitrax make a drop-in decoder, DN163KOA, and I know they do another variant which is the DN163KOB, to replace the existing printed circuit board, but we do need to make some modifications along the way. This is the replacement printed circuit board next to the existing train, and as you can see the board comes with two white LEDs, and one of those is actually the wrong way around. So these are the sort of modifications we'll be looking to make. So one of the first jobs is to remove the capstan tape that comes over the top of the decoder, which we will use on this printed circuit board. So we'll keep that safe. So looking at the loco in more detail now, let's remove the printed circuit board. So there's this little grey plastic clip that you just lift out of the middle, and that holds the two brass contactors to the motor, so we'll just lift them away gently either side, and once they're away sufficiently, it's a case of just pushing the printed circuit board slightly forward and it comes out, and it is that easy to remove that circuit board. So with the PCB removed, we've now got to insulate these copper brass strips here where the motor tags are to stop them from touching. So you take those out by just literally pinging off the plastic holders either end. That's it, and they ping off nice and easy, and then we can remove those copper brass strips. And what I'll do is I'll just mark it where the motor contact is. It's just there, and yep, so that's where we'll put the tape. So there's the capstan tape that came with the decoder, and we'll just wrap that round. I'll just go around twice. Apologies that the fingers are out of shot, but there you go. And here's the tape all cut and trimmed round, so we can now put those strips back into the motor. So with both strips now taped with the capstan tape, we'll put these back into the motor now. A little bit fiddly, but what I tend to do is to get the back end, I just rest them in, and I'll get the little clip and I slide the clip in on the back end. That's it, and then I can just make the adjustment on the front end. Just make sure they're roughly aligned. There's a little hole right where my thumb is there, so once you get it in the right place, the little pin will pop through the hole, and then once in, you can slide that up and do the other end. So a little bit fiddly, but a bit of patience, and in fact, I've just got one of the contacts hasn't gone quite perfectly over the, so just got to move it over, reposition, and slide again, and then I can just tuck those down in the right place. And here's a close-up of the loco now with those two strips back in place and all aligned, so you can see how they sit in with the tape over where the contacts would be. So with those copper brass strips now in place, it's time to install the decoder. And basically the decoder just sits straight back in like the previous circuit board, just slides back over that pin where my finger is, and that holds it down in place. And I'll just align it up and then just gently bend over the motor contacts onto that printed circuit board, and then get that grey clip and then just push the grey clip back into that gap. With the decoder now installed, I'll put it on my little program track and just test it and run it up and down to make sure it's working fine. As you can see, the train is running no problem at all. So with the train now running, what we've got to do is now to resolve this. As we can see, the train is actually going forwards with the backlight on and backwards with the front light on. So what I've got to do is swap these round and actually put the red LED in the right place as well. So we have the loco back on the desk. It's time to remove the decoder. Again, just pull out that little grey clip, push the decoder forward and just slightly undo the motor contacts, and then we can get the decoder out, and now we can modify the decoder and start to move the lights around. So the first job is now to remove the red LED from the old original printed circuit board. So I'll just get my solder sucker, just remove the vast amounts of solder that's on there. And a little bit of prying. That's the old LED out. So I've now flipped the decoder over and got to the front light, and again we'll just remove the solder from the back. I've actually got the temperature quite down on the soldering iron as I don't want it too hot here to burn everything up. And then what I'll do now is there's quite a bit of solder on the front as well, so I'll just remove a bit of that. And I can actually see it's starting to come, so I'll just gently remove that. And with that removed, we can now put the red LED in, paying attention to make sure we get it the right way around. That's it, there's the red LED now in place. So with the decoder back in the loco, all I've got to do is now bend the red LED into the right position, and now I can focus on the white LED that's pointing the wrong way. So here I've actually desoldered the white LED off the decoder and placed it where roughly it's going to sit, and I've used the existing printed circuit board as an indication of where it would sit. And as you can see, my LED just slightly short of reaching the contacts, so I just need to extend the legs of these LEDs. So I used two small bits of wire and I just soldered them onto the legs of the LED. I'll trim the wires to the correct length, and then I'll put some heat shrink around the actual legs of the LED, given it was going to sit across the decoder. So with the white LED now soldered back where it was, just making sure it's now the correct length. Well, the decoder is now back inside the loco, so now it's time to test it and make sure it all works fine. So with the loco back on the test track, I can now test the LEDs to make sure they're working, which they are. Well, however, when I run the train in the forward direction, I've still got the red light on. So let's swap those round. The easiest way to do this is to go into your CV settings and look for CVs 33 and 34, which is the front and rear lights, and basically swap them round. So let's make 33 to a 2 and 34 to a 1. A knock at the door interrupted recording, so apologies. So here we go, 33 to a 2 and 34, we'll swap that to a 1. Okay, we'll write those to the decoder. With those settings changed, We'll get a red light now when it goes backwards, and a white light now it goes forwards. So it's just a case of simple now of putting the body shell back on, which is actually quite straightforward, and to give it a test. And here we go now. So we've got the red light for going backwards, and we've got the front lights for going forwards. So with the loco now complete, that's part one. Now let's look at part two, which is resolving the dummy end. So with the dummy end this time, again we just remove the nose, which just unclips, a little bit of wiggle again, and it unclips. And again, as before, I slide my two plastic blades up the side, and with a little bit of wiggle, and just move them right up to the end. It's amazing how they just lift off. There we go, bang, and off it comes. And with that off, we're faced with the same decoder, and we'll make some changes to this one now as well. So again, to remove the decoder, just remove the little plastic cap, and this time we've got no motor contacts, so it just literally pushes forward and out it comes, as easy as that. And as you can see, we've got loads of areas where we can put the decoder, or even sound, or even speakers, so plenty of room inside here to do the work. We just need to modify the printed circuit board slightly for the lights to work. So in the dummy end, this time I'm going to install another Digitrax decoder. This time it's the DZ126. This decoder is really nice in size and will fit beautifully inside the Eurostar. The advantage for me using this decoder over the printed circuit board variety is I can actually wire it into my decoder tester. I can test it, make sure it's running okay before we do any install, and actually I can program it as well, because obviously being in a dummy car it won't program easy. So a small modification to the old board is I cut away the little sections right by the LED there. In addition, I've also cut across where the resistor is, so that's not touching anything to do with the circuitry. Then I gently insert the decoder through the middle hole where it will sit rather neatly. So here I've soldered the red wire to one side of the contact and the black wire to the other side of the pickup contacts. And in this picture you can see I've now soldered the blue wire to the other side of that resistor, which is tightly completely isolated from everything else, so that will provide the power to each of the LED legs. I've then soldered the yellow wire to the other side of the red LED to complete that circuit. Apologies for the blurry picture, but it is showing the white wire, which is the front light, going to the other side of the front white LED, so that completes that circuit. The orange and grey wires, which would obviously normally go to the motor, I've just sealed around some capstan tape to sort them touching and shorting out on anything. So here's a really good picture showing all the decoder in the motor housing, and then the various wires going to the contacts on that printed circuit board. Now it's just a case of putting all those wires neatly into the housing, and we can test. So here's a close-up now of the printed circuit board in that dummy unit back in place, with the decoder and all the wires hidden nicely underneath. So you really wouldn't even know there's a decoder in there now, but that's how it should look. So I'll put it on the test track with the other one, and yeah, the LED lights are working, but unfortunately I'm a phase out. So as you can see, that unit's going forward with the white light, and the other end had the white light. So if I've got the red light on at this end, yeah, I've got a red light on at that end. So let's resolve that. The quickest way to do this is to get the motor unit and change CV29. As you can see, it's got the red lights on, and if I go to that first bit and change that, send it to the power car, that changes the polarity on the power car. So now both ends will work perfectly fine. With all the modifications done to both ends, it's now time to give it a run and test it. Overall, this was not an easy DCC friendly conversion. I would probably say this is a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Would have been harder obviously with sound as well, but most satisfying, I must say. And I've also now done the other Eurostar as well. In addition to the Eurostars, the same conversion can be done to the CJM, Channel Tunnel, Le Shuttle Power and dummy cars to convert them to DCC. I make no apology here. I turned the controller up to 11 and gave it the full beans, and these Kato models just absolutely run beautifully. I just wished all manufacturers could make trains as good as these. So I'll leave you now with some running at scale speed this time. Please like and subscribe to the channel and leave any comments below. Take care.